Red ocean is a very competitive market. It's a market where there's a lot of businesses, there's a lot of organizations competing for the same consumers. Now, so for example, it's called the red ocean because it's supposed to be a very bloody ocean, it's very shark infested, and this is supposed to represent those organizations and businesses fighting over the same consumers. So it might be you have to use your 7 Ps to actually gain more consumers, so you might have to drop your price, you might have to promote differently, change your product a bit, but what you need to do is get those consumers to buy your product or service, and so it becomes a very competitive market. Now, if you're dropping price all the time, and let's say you have a trade war, then what can happen is that, of course, businesses will have to leave that market because they can no longer compete because it's not profitable, and therefore it's actually a very difficult environment to be in because all the time you are competing for the same customers. Now, some businesses and organisations, what they've done is they've done what's called the blue ocean strategy, and they've actually sat down and they've thought outside of the box. They've actually thought about a way to change their product or service that it actually is sold in a different market, and therefore suddenly you're looking at different consumers that are going to be buying your product or service. So an example would be the Cirque du Soleil, that before they were just a bog standard circus that we all know. But actually what they'd found was, demand was going down, people weren't going to visit the circus anymore, it wasn't very modern. So suddenly they thought about modernising the whole circus experience. They brought in modern dance, they brought in interactive entertainment, and they actually made it very different and very modern. And then suddenly they weren't even competing with the old circuses anymore. They were actually competing in a very a different kind of market, but a market that didn't really exist. Modern, up-to-date circuses didn't really exist until Cirque du Soleil came along. So actually what they did is they created their own market, and the advantage to that is suddenly you are the only person within that market, and you have what is called first mover advantage. So you are selling your product or service, and people can only come to you for that. And that happens until other people start to enter that market, but that can take years or decades, depending on the product and service that you're actually making. Now, Apple itself is a really good example of a blue ocean strategy, because what they've done, or what they did back in 1992, is suddenly they took the iPhone, or they produced the iPhone, and they said, well, it doesn't just need to be a phone anymore. We don't want to just talk to each other. How about if we actually make it very more interactive, and we actually make it into a smartphone, so you can go online, you can use iTunes, you can listen to your music, you can video, you take photos. Now suddenly Apple have created a whole new market, and phones have developed so much since then. But the great thing with Apple was, because they were the first person to do this, they actually had a lot of brand loyalty, and they had what is called first mover advantage. So if the only smartphone you can buy is Apple, then you buy the Apple, and then hopefully what will happen is you will always buy Apple, and you become very loyal to that brand, and therefore suddenly you will queue for a week outside an Apple store to buy the new iPhone 6 or 7 or whatever it may be. But that's come from brand loyalty, and them having the first mover advantage that actually people had to buy Apple to begin with because they were the most up-to-date smartphone, and then people became loyal to that brand. So okay, other competitors do enter that market and have entered that market, but if you have that first mover advantage, hopefully you can maintain your consumers and your customers.